Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to continue looking into animation. And specifically what we'll do is we'll take these three cards that you see in front of you on the screen right now, and we'll go ahead and create an animation that will animate them in one after another. And we'll do this in React, but the concepts here will be applicable to any framework or pure JavaScript if that's your flavor. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at the code. So we have a simple app here. We have the restaurants set in state here, which basically is just this set of data right here. So we have three objects. We have an image URL for each object. We have a title and we have a description. And this data is being used to render out these three cards. So that's basically what you see on the screen right here is the result of rendering out that data set. So we're passing in the data to the card, and the card has some code that basically renders this out, and a tiny bit of CSS just to make it pretty. So what we'll do right now is we'll go ahead and create a new component in this repository. And we'll call this component fade in. And we'll go ahead and create that as well. And now we'll set up the skeleton for the component. And we know that we want to get something called children here. And I'll explain that in a minute. It's not that important right now, but just bear in mind that we need that property. And for now, we're going to render out the children. And we'll also do an export here so we can use this component in other files. So going back to app, what we'll do now is in this render function here, we will put the fade in component right here. And here's where the concept of children is going to come into play. So what we'll be doing is we'll place the card inside of this fade in component's opening and closing brackets. So children means that the fade in component will render everything that is inside its opening and closing brackets. In this case, it's the card. So if we jump back to the browser now, we'll expect it to be exactly the same as before, just the three cards showing up here. So that's all good. Now let's focus on what kind of interface we want this fade-in component to have. And we need to think about this in the context of the animation. So let's jump over to the fade-in component. And in addition to children, we want to take a direction property. So which way is it going to be animating in? From the left, from the right, from the top, or down? And then we also want to have a delay by property because we might not want every fade in to happen at the same time. We might want to trigger the animation delay that we've covered in previous sessions. And we're also going to have a by. And the reason I'm putting by here is because I kind of want to write this like so. So I want to be able to write fade in by, and then I want to give an amount in pixels. So let's say I want to fade in by 300 pixels. And let's say, we'll say direction left. And let's say it's going to be delay by 0.2 or something like that. So that's kind of the interface I'm looking for here. So let's go ahead and see how we can code this out. So the first thing we need is we need the default state. So we need something that the animation can start from. because we need to switch between the two different states. So we need a starting state. So let's go ahead and create a function that says get initial state. And we'll create a styles object here. And what we want to do is we want to check the direction property. So if the direction property is left, then we want to go ahead and say styles transform. And it's going to be translate X. And we are going to say by, which is the property we specified up here. And then we are going to use this again to say if it's right, then we want to say translate X, but instead of it being positive value, we want to use a negative value. And we will check if direction is up. It's going to be translate Y and a positive value. And if direction is down, then we want to go ahead and say this is going to be a negative translate Y value. And then we can also go ahead and add, if we have a delay by, we will go ahead and say styles, transition delay. And that's going to be the delay by, and we need to put an S behind here because it's going to be seconds. Right, so there we have our initial state or initial styles. So let's go ahead and say div. And we will create an object here called combined styles. And let's start by calling the get initial state function. And we have to make sure that we return the styles object here. And what we'll do is we'll say style on this div is going to equal the combined styles. Like so. All right, so we parsed the properties. Let's go ahead and add a few more to get our initial starting point. So we'll do transition, and we'll do opacity 0.4 as ease, and make sure we wrap these in quotes. And then we'll do another transition on transform this time. And we'll do 0.4 seconds, and we'll do ease on that as well. And let's go ahead and set opacity to 0. So that will set up a transition on these two properties, and it will set the opacity to 0. So if we go back to our application now, it's completely empty. We can't see anything, which is what we expected since we set opacity to 0. If we flip it back to 1, we should get our cards back, and we do. So now we got our starting point. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and create some animation styles. So our animation styles are going to be as easy as opacity is going to be 1, and transform is going to be translate x to 0 and translate y to 0. Now, we need another set of properties as well, because this is our starting point and this is our animation. And we want the animation to trigger from this starting point when the component mounts. So in React, the way we'll do it in this video is we're going to create a piece of state here that's going to keep track of this for us. So we'll say something like apply styles, and we'll do set apply styles. And we will do useState, which will then import from React. Import useState from React. And then we'll also grab useEffect. So basically, useEffect is going to trigger a function when the component mounts. So by putting this empty square bracket array as the second argument to this function, we are specifying that this is only going to be run once. And what we want to do is we want to set a timeout, and we will call set apply styles, and we'll put in true here, and the starting value will be 4. All right, so what this will do is that when this component mounts, it will wait 50 milliseconds, and then we'll take this state variable, apply styles, and it will swap it from false to true. Now we're going to use that to apply our animation styles down here. And we'll do that by moving this into a function. So we'll say const get animation styles. And we'll say if apply styles, we will return this object right here with the animation styles, like so. And let's see, return this. And we need an extra set of brackets there. And then otherwise, we'll just return an empty object. So we'll take this function here right now, and we will put it at the bottom here. And we'll spread the properties out. So we'll just take all of the properties from whichever object is returned from this function, and it will put them into this combined styles object, like so. All right, so let's go back to our application in app.js, and we'll go in and add properties here. So we'll say direction is going to be left, y is going to be 300, and we won't set any delay right now, but we'll just go to our browser and see if this works. So let's refresh the page, and you can see we are now sliding in every single card at the same time. So I think we'll round off there, and we'll have a look at creating that staggering effect in the next video. Thanks for sticking around, and have a nice day.